Okay. Guess I'll call the meeting to order, and this is just a workshop. Can we have a roll call, please, Mochi?
Sure. Dave Barber.
Here.
Jay McLaughlin, absent. Kelly Johnson. He's muted. Kelly is here. We assume Mark Joby. Matt Spalding.
Here.
Norma Benson. Here. Rick Graves.
Here.
Tony Riley.
Here.
Zach Langren. Zach may be running late, but he'll join us, we assume. So we do have a quorum.
Okay. Well, I will open up with, like we did last week, I guess it was. We'll limit the public 3-minute comments to begin before we do our part of it all. You got the timer there, Mochi?
Sure.
Red on, green on.
Green is on.
Well, I noticed last time the 3-minute timer didn't work so good. I'd like you guys to work by the hour for me. You know, some of them went about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Anyway, several years ago, a bunch of years ago, there was a man with a good chunk of ground that he offered to me for lease, and he wanted me to come up with lease terms. And coming up with the typical lease terms wasn't the least bit hard, but then I had partners at that time. We sat down and we had to think of ways to protect ourselves because the man who owned the property had a well-deserved reputation of being very difficult to deal with. After several meetings of saying, you know what? If our goal is to see how we can have escape clauses and protection, this is something we shouldn't be in at all. Last meeting, I heard you guys coming up with, well, we can put up berms. That'll help protect the site some. That might work well if we're in Kansas. Well, we come up with well monitoring. Well, if there's any chance you're going to pollute the groundwater in a residential area, maybe you shouldn't do it. I also heard, about the setbacks. It's a good idea, minimize risk and so on. But we're not flat ground. Our terrain won't work for that. There are places where we could hide it, but basically what it comes down to, the potential damage, the amount of time that's involved, and the looming other companies that we know are prepping to take to FSEC. If we don't have something to control local very quickly, it's not going to make any difference. If we have something in place, when they go to the state, it's good. And at this point, I would actually like to recommend you just simply say no in the moratorium area. Perhaps it can be opened up later at a better time where they can take time to do it and not have the pressure of corporate trying to beat us to the draw. But at this point in time, I would ask you to consider just simply saying no in the moratorium area. You came up with every reason that we had to try and work around what was potential problems. And if we were flat ground and this wasn't a residential area, it probably worked good. I'm not against solar, but what has happened to reach this point for us, we're pushed into a corner. If you don't take the right action at this point, it won't matter what happens. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Greg Wagner. I formed the group Cease 33 months ago, started learning about solar. Can't find anything good about it. It's going to destroy the beauty of our valley here. Hate to see that happen. And, kind of reviewed these ordinance, and there's a lot of problems with the ordinance. It's really lacking. If we really want to protect the county and the environment, the future of the citizens, it needs to be much more stringent. The only problem is if you make it more stringent, corporations will just go to FSEC. So kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't on this, but You know, I find the ordinances to be poorly written and vague, and there's quite a bit of assumptions in here, and it lacks clarity. And it's open to interpretation, and it seems to be unenforceable. And it fails to address all the real problems that large-scale solar is going to have on our county. It lacks a glossary of terms and phrases so that when the language is in this ordinance, that it has a definition to fall back on, so you know what the word or the phrase means. I believe it needs quite a bit of work to be truly an enforceable document. And one of the other problems is if there is a SEPA, which Mochi says there has to be a SEPA, and it gets appealed, then the decision goes to the Board of County Commissioners. If they decide they don't want to make a decision, then it goes to a hearing examiner. So at that point, if a conditional use permit's involved, hearing examiner can combine the two and make a decision on both of them. And that's what happened with the Under Canvas project in White Salmon. So I think there needs to be quite a bit more work done on this if it's going to be a really enforceable document, something that can be held and used with these solar companies for any future development. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next.
Candy Magnuson. I just don't like the secrecy that has happened to our county. And these foreign countries coming in here, sneaking in here actually, and telling the people that have listed with them or leased with them, don't tell, don't tell. The rest of us have had to find out by ourselves or our neighbors what's going to happen to Goldendale and Klickitat County. How many people south of Goldendale, the city of Goldendale, right to the city limits? No, there's going to be 900 acres of solar panels. I bet 98% don't know that. They're building houses, they're putting in everything. Come to Goldendale, bring your business here. I had somebody ask me yesterday, what does Goldendale need? What do you mean? What does it need? It needs a couple new county commissioners, I'd say. But, you know, I was being polite and they said, no. I mean, what can help Goldendale? I said, stopping the solar companies coming here. Covering our farmland up. What is about that? I mean, come on, guys, this is dangerous stuff we're facing here. I'll be dead before too much happens. But my kids and grandkids and great-grandkids are going to have to handle it, okay? This, to me, it should be banned as right now. No more going to this to permit, nothing, no more. We have to honor, I hear, what they've done already because they'll sue us. Okay, well, we're gonna have to clean up the mess anyway, so take that money. But anyway, I vote for banning anymore.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Debbie.
Is that
Wagner.
mic on, the one you're in front of you?
You're right, it was red. Debbie Wagner, and I also worked with CEAS for 32 months. I'd like to make a couple of points this evening that maybe the Planning Commission doesn't know. One is, we only have a half a year of sunshine. How are we gonna have solar sites? Impossible. My other point is Lund Hill started approximately last September. November and December, there were solar panels destroyed by wind. We also have bad winds here. The solar sites aren't going to make it. So what happens then? We tried to find out the information. There wasn't any. We were just told it was taken care of. I don't know. Personally, I think we should ban solar. It's just financially and physically can be harmful to all citizens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tom Hola, Goldendale. I'd just like to speak on behalf of my wife and I regarding the industrial solar projects. And I want to thank this planning commission for the work you put into regulating those energy needs and development in this county. It's a big responsibility, I understand that. I'd just like to ask that the size of energy projects in this county be really restricted because of many reasons, environmental, this is supposed to help the environment, but again, I think I said at the last meeting, I don't think we solve any energy problems by feeding the energy gluttons, and that's basically what we're doing. And the energy obviously is going slated to go outside of this county. So the more we can restrict it, the less big corporate, big profits exploit our county's natural resources. And that's what I asked the commission to consider. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Warren Daisy, and I didn't really come prepared for this. I live right on Pine Forest Road, where it's going to come right up against my backyard. And the reason we moved to Goldendale, the reason a lot of people move here is because of the view. It's peaceful. It just feels good here. We have a view that is, well, we have a view of the whole valley, kind of like the Hansons. I just don't quite understand why the solar companies can't relocate outside the moratorium area. I mean, it's not that much out of their $3 billion budget, where for some of us, we're all in, everything. I don't want to hear those switches clanking off and on all night. If there's a fire, I mean, lithium batteries are not as stable as everyone's led to believe. If there's a fire, we got to evacuate. We're probably one of the first ones would have to evacuate. Where do we go? And I realize that I don't speak for the whole county. I speak for the people that live right around this thing. And I think there's more people live close to that than we're led to believe, because there's more solar slated for this than we're led to believe. So I appreciate the work, and I do appreciate being kept on the email list. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Delmer Eldred, Goldendale. It's beyond me why we have to keep deliberating and deliberating on a development that was conceived over 5 years ago, and the original concept has not changed. And if I hear one more time the government moves slow, my head's going to explode. It only took 3 months or less from the idea of a new annex until the plans were completed and the bids were in. Then it took 2 months to figure out how to borrow money to tear down the old annex. My point is, the government moves as slow as the public servants in charge want it to. If this county right now was a business with a 59 million plus budget and had employees that were incapable of making a decision after 32 months of gathering facts and collecting input, they'd be fired. And it's very clear that this project is not acceptable for the location it has been proposed. For that, my question is, what have you decided? Please quit playing games. Also, you are the future of this county, or at least this part of the county, there will be no future for it because these companies are going to be the ones that are in charge of this county, and the county government is going to be the county government, people in the county government are just going to be seat warmers because they are the ones that will own basically 2/3 of this county. And they're the ones that will have the most interest in what goes on in this county. And they'll be writing the tax laws. They'll be making the major decisions because they will have the power to do whatever they feel that is in their best interest for their profits. And that's one thing that you guys should really consider. I just think you should make a recommendation that this solar projects are not acceptable in this county because it's going to cause an economic hardship that is going to be unbelievable.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, someone on Zoom.
Dawn,
Hello, everybody. My name is Don Steinke. Thanks for having me. And I'm from Clark County. And let me get my briefly prepared remarks in front of me. So Bonneville Power Administration is in the process of renewing contracts with utilities. For some utilities, the contracts expire in 2028. As fossil fuel power plants are retiring faster than renewables are being added, and many people want to restore salmon runs to abundance above the lower Snake River dams, all those factors need to be considered. Klickitat County may not be able to rely on BPA forever. Now, I could be wrong, but that's what I'm learning. I think we need solar. I don't know that your concerns in the county should be dismissed. Some of them I think are myths or assumptions. I don't know that I haven't heard of any evidence of groundwater contamination. And there's a way to mitigate fire risks by separating the batteries and having them on concrete. And Clark Public Utilities has jumped into nuclear. And it hasn't started up yet, and it's not going to start up yet. They're just doing the study phases, the feasibility studies, but they're trying to get, the nuclear industry is trying to bring nuclear to the state of Washington, and that Grant County turned them down. And where the Hanford area is, I guess that's Benton County, is interested in having them there. But you might have, if you don't have solar, you may need nuclear. And I don't know if that you want to have that. It might be far more expensive than solar. And I haven't heard anybody express any concern or knowledge about climate change. And that's a huge issue that we need to, for our children's future, we need to think about. And I guess that's all I have to say. And thank you all for your hard work and thoughtful comments.
Thank you.
anybody else on Zoom? Because okay, Sherry.
Good evening, Planning Commission. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sometimes my computer has issues. Thank you again for the opportunity to hear from the local public of Klickitat County. And I know that I am in Houston. And I do not live in Goldendale, but I am a taxpayer of Klickitat County. And I am an electric ratepayer of Klickitat County. And both of which my property taxes have gone up and my electric rates have gone up, and they're predicted to continue to go up for at least 2 more years to support the system, to support these new renewables. Unfortunately, I think that our climate change is being a hoax on us. They continue to tell us that if we put these projects of these wind turbines And these solar panels, thousands of acres, thousands miles, people, I need you to imagine this, miles. This is not what Clark County PUD put on their little side yard by the 500. I come from Clark County. You know, this is miles, this is farmland. We really need to consider what we're doing here. And, you know, these are foreign corporations that have front companies. And they start large lawsuits. There's one in Maine right now. And they continue to keep the state rolled into a lawsuit and continue to suck from the state and the county and everybody else. And, you know, they're ruthless. These corporations are ruthless. I can give you proof of it. We've provided proof to our county. They're public-private partnerships. This should be concerning to all of us. These solar miles of black glass surrounding this beautiful golden valley of farmland. It'll destroy the economic future of this city. I question who went to Lund Hill. Hopefully you'll answer that tonight. Who actually went and toured the largest solar array of Washington State. I don't believe it's done yet. I think there's some fraud going on there. When the renewables are taxed at a decreased basis, the burden is shifted to the people. That is why we are seeing our property taxes raised. The county assessor and the county commissioners have both admitted this. This is proof on a public meeting. We take the burden as they decrease. There's no jobs. It takes over our farmland. It'll take over our county. It's like a cancer. If one project gets in, the rest will come in because that one set a precedence. That one project will set a precedence for the rest of that valley. I am very grateful that the moratorium protects a certain level or a certain area. And I agree, ban it from that area. Just ban it now. Because we've had secrecy. We understand that power station, substation was put in for a reason. But those were people who didn't have our county's future in line. You are the planning commission and you have
Excuse
a
me,
big task.
your
Okay,
time has expired.
Okay, thank you. And you are responsible for the planning of the future. Thank you for consideration.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening, Russ Hanson, Goldendale. I'd just like to say that you guys have a tremendous project in front of you, and I don't envy you at all. I listened to your last meeting via Zoom, and there were some great ideas, but I think we need to stay focused. We hear a lot about this Night Road project, and I know you guys have to be focused on the whole area, not just worrying about this one project, because there's more in the pipeline coming down. Some of the ideas I heard, which I strongly agree with, is the setbacks need to be from non-participating property owners' property line, not their house. Because my wife and I included, we bought property 13 years ago and just now finished our house on it. And when they first started this current project, they were giving us no setback because there was no house on the property. A lot of people buy property planning to retire on it, and they work on it for years and years. And if there's not a house on it, those panels can come right up to the property line. And the other thing is, you know, they say, well, they'll give you 500 feet or 1,000 feet from your house. Well, that doesn't even make it to my property line. I don't live in my house 24/7. I live on the whole property, and on the whole property, I don't want to look at panels right across my fence. Another great idea that was brought up at your last meeting was population density. You know, you need to look at what the population density is in these certain areas where these things are planned. And, you know, you look at a lot of these projects and there's no houses around. You know, and there's a lot of good country in this county for solar. It's just not in these areas that they're under the moratorium. There was one other point I wanted to make real quick. The lithium batteries. I mean, they're talking about putting lithium battery storage in our development within half a dozen houses. And that's just not acceptable. I mean, there's no way But that's basically all I had to say. Continue the good work. You have had some great ideas. Just remember, we need to stay focused on the whole moratorium and not just this current project, because like I said, there are more coming down the pipeline. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Come on up. The water's fine.
Good evening, Commission. Elaine Harvey, and I am a local citizen, Klickitat County. I reside within the moratorium area. But anyways, in 2019, many of us citizens became aware of solar coming into the area, and we brought up these concerns to the commissioners, to the county, and about solar ordinances. And this was in 2019. Now this is 2023. We could have been ahead of the game instead of behind the game. We brought up these concerns as concerned citizens of our area, of this community. And, I'm really upset that ordinances weren't created back in 2019. We wouldn't be sitting here right now. And why are we sitting here now, after the fact? Now we have a company in FSEC and possibly more going through FSEC. So, I just really wish that these ordinances could be in place to protect the citizens of this county, this community, Goldendale. We don't want to look at solar on the west side of town. We all enjoy those views. Everyone does. That's why we have a viewpoint on 97. Now, who's going to stop at the viewpoint in 97 when this whole valley is full of solar? And there's efficiency studies done. This area is not even, it's not even a good place to have solar. If you look at studies, 22% efficiency of these panels convert into energy. That's not a high efficiency. And also, there's just so much negative impacts that these will have on our environment, as we already expressed many times over. But, the main one is impacts to the community, the environment, the city of Goldendale and the future of Goldendale. That's what I like to say right now. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Well, I'll close that portion. Now we'll discuss some things amongst ourselves. And I'll preface it that 3 of us were on a site tour of the Lund Hill Solar Farm today. And I've been there before, but some of us have never seen it. And I think, well, Dave, you had some pretty good thoughts. You were pretty blown away with the fact that there's very few residences there. And that makes it a lot more appropriate way they place that versus out west of town. With that being said, Dave, you want to add to that?
Thank you. I guess I will say I mentioned earlier today that a year or two ago, I kind of went the back way west of Wing Road. I don't remember which road I was on between Centerville and Goldendale, just on the dirt roads. I hadn't done it in a while. Yes, I live here, but I just hadn't had occasion to go out there, and I was just remarkable how many homes were in that area that I didn't even know about. I mean, I kind of know who farms what ground, and it just kind of blew me away. So actually today when I went to Lund Hill, I expected to see homes that were relatively new, and there are in the Bickleton area, closer into Bickleton, certainly, and west of Bickleton. I actually expected to see more in the area of Lund Hill, and it just absolutely blew me away that I did see the 2 residences that are there across from the solar farm. And really, it's an
they've been there
expanse.
for quite a while.
Yeah, it's expansive. That particular project falls away, I'll say generally, and you can correct me, but it kind of tails away in elevation to the southeast from where it begins on the northwest corner, just kind of trickles off that way. it's actually fairly hard to see, to be honest with you. Not when you're right there. It's not hard to see when you're near it, but wouldn't be hard to see if you were 500 feet away. But I was purposely looking for it as I went out Bickleton Road, looking to see. I said, I know I'm going to be able to see something, and from miles away, unlike here, from miles away, it was pretty hard to observe it, at least from the high end. It's actually the reverse, unfortunately, in the area, especially around Knight Road and certainly in some of the areas around town. That'll actually be up. It'll almost be something of an amphitheater going up in the Knight Road area. So the people that I was talking about that have populated this area, the Centerville Valley, even though it's a few miles away, many of them will be looking at those projects and others that are closer to them, certainly, that are in the pipeline. So anyway.
And Mark, you have anything to add? You were on that tour as well.
Yeah. Voice is probably strong enough. We've talked about, or I've talked about this on being on the planning commission, that sometimes we're dealing with stuff that's simply not our problem. No disrespect to great commentary today, but we don't care if it's not profitable or it's not efficient. We will undermine, let me back up a second. From about early 1900s, 1990 on, I did a lot of expert research and expert testimonial work for major lawsuits. And I had to learn to write a report. And I would get beat up all the time by the lawyers. They weren't my customer, but they would beat me up over stuff. And we have to be careful with words, because the more words that you put in a document, the more they can beat you up with. So I get troubled when we have documents that start to get super weighty. And I'm always troubled by documents that have unnecessary color commentary. For instance, I one time wrote that it was a very red stop sign. And I got beat to death in a deposition over this, because I didn't need to say it was very, and I didn't need to say it was red, because does anybody know a stop sign that isn't red? And it was just sort of amusing thinking about that today. So when we talk about, we don't want to incorporate worries like some of the issues that come up. We don't care that it's not profitable. That's for somebody else to decide. We need to stay focused on what's right for this community. So because we are tasked with dealing with only the moratorium issue, I am throwing my hat in the ring that we simply continue that ban. This is not a suitable area. I have driven every one of those roads out there. I did a tour with Dave a couple of months ago or weeks ago. I have since been back, and some of those roads aren't any better than they were then, even though they're dried out. There is just so much housing density out there and so many smaller parcels that those people didn't bargain for. And I think that's an arguable thing. If we persist with something like this for that moratorium area, I think this is going to get shoved up our collective butts, because we don't have a lot of best science. What's the best science for how big a setback should it be? Should it be 500 feet from a property line? Should it be 200? We're going to get challenged, the county, on, well, how did you arrive at 500 feet? And we're going to say, well, it felt right. That we're not going to win and defend it with that. I think we've absolutely got a stronger position by simply saying, look, we have looked this area over. I'm telling you, I have driven every single road out there. My GPS, by the way, doesn't work on my cell phone at the moment. Forgot how much I depended on that. A little challenging time getting back. I knew which way was south, so I eventually ran into the Centerville Highway. Sorry, should have shut that off. Anyway, that would be my proposal, guys. I think we need to table this thing. There is just too much information we don't have. As of today, Washington State government has developed no guidelines for these industrial solar systems. There are no guidelines. So the state themselves doesn't know what the hell to do with these things. I think we've got a pretty strong argument to say if the state doesn't even have these things figured out, how would they expect a little podunk county? I mean, anyway, that's my proposal. I don't know if we want to make that a motion or whether we want to talk more about that, so.
Oh, I think we'll talk a little bit more about that. Norma, do you have any thoughts on this?
I'm sorry I missed the tour today. And I'll try to get out there and see it in the next 2 weeks or so. Because I would like to see that installation that's out there at Lund Hill. And I'm very, I've read the material that we sent today. I think we have to sometimes zoom out and look at the larger picture, like the gentleman from Clark County. He's thinking about a bigger picture than just our valley. And I think we also, of course, need to zoom in when people have these beautiful properties and the beauty. I don't believe the beauty can be restored. I guess I've thought about this so much, and beauty is a very important part, not just the view, not in a superficial way, but these are very rare assets that we have in Klickitat County, the actual beauty of this farmland. So I don't think I have enough to make a decision on whether the moratorium area, that solar should be banned from that area. But I guess I sort of lean that way. I need to know what agent, if somebody could explain to me what agent could come in. Is it the state of Washington, or is it this? I can't write with my right hand right now. So another agency that would force us to, or would trump anything that we would prepare in terms of ordinance and just override what we are talking about now. I would like to know what kind of power has that ability to sort of trump our own wishes. If somebody could explain that to me, I think it would help me.
Kelly, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, the more I looked online and the more I read and listened, there are a lot of horror stories out there. I kind of lean towards if we can keep that area free from solar. That it seems like that's what people want and what would probably be best. But I'm in the same line with Norma in that can it be superseded where they come in anyway with this other process, and then it's sort of an open door because there are no rules of engagement. So they just kind of, steamroll the community, and, the flora and the fauna just, pillage the earth. So that was my concern too, is like, if we don't develop something to regulate this or engage the process, are we basically leaving ourselves open to this other, like, I don't know if it's a federal or state process that can go around local regulations?
Tony?
I think you guys pretty much are continuing to say the same thing. And how many people are here for it today and last time? Not too many. Great comments, everyone. And I agree with Mark on a lot of things, and Dave and I spoke and had some dialogue on. I think we need to stop it right now, right where it's at. And there's too many people that have put a lot of their life in these spots out there. And I think we need to move ahead with that. I think we need to do it tonight. But I think we should still move ahead. Or if we do that tonight, I think we should swiftly move ahead and look at the legal ramifications moving forward as far as a federal or state agency bulldozing us. But that's what I think. I think
Go for it, Rick.
So as far as my feelings right now, and I sent a message to Mochi about the state legislators hired WSU to do a non-conflict solar siting criteria, and that's not done yet. From what I read online, we'll have something back on that by June 30th. That's the date they're talking about. I would be curious how the WSU siting criteria compares to the work that has been done here in this criteria. But I guess if you look at the bigger picture, there's several things. It's like, well, I sympathize with the people that don't want to be next to them. I wouldn't either. Is this enough? I guess I read this and go, and then I go, the gentleman that said, hey, 500 feet from your property line, 1,800 feet from your house. Well, I don't know about those numbers. I mean, you're going to throw a number, maybe the 1,800 for the property line. I mean, I agree with that. But do we know enough? And is that really enough? And although I would like to see the work that WSU has done, and let's say, I still think it would be useful to the county to see what they've done. And if we have areas that would maybe work out with siting criteria. I wasn't able to get to the tour today, but I would have the question for Mark and Dave both is like, okay, there's houses, kind of surprised you there was residential close. Do you think based on this, I mean, you think that the project out there that you toured would be approved under this criteria? And do you think it probably shouldn't have been approved, I guess would be a question. But at this point in time, I guess to move forward in the moratorium area myself, I still have a problem with that, because even though this is really a good effort, I still would be concerned that we know enough and that we could protect the people enough. So, at this point in time, and I would say, I'm just not comfortable with it. But I still want to continue to gather the information. We might have areas in the east end of the county. I mean, we might have things that work, and and I hope we don't get it shoved down our throat when we say, hey, you can't be here by the state. But I'm not comfortable that we've still done enough on the siting and have enough information.
A question that came up today that I didn't ask, because I don't think they're the right people to ask, but I hear that some of the reason that this is planned is because it's near this station. The Lund connects to a station 15 miles away in Rock Creek Canyon. They're doing it. They're running 15 miles. I don't understand
I mean, I don't know what that, I don't know if that's $10,000 a foot. I mean, my guess is a staggering amount of money.
Dave was saying that the state may, sorry to
No,
interrupt, but
no.
isn't it true the state's looking at maybe covering some costs for
Sub-
addition?
Substantially that they will they will remove some of the transmission building line costs from the private company, so they can move it further away.
Have any of you guys driven like Newell Road that eventually goes all the way down to Rock Creek? I mean, if you look, I don't know, I'm not speaking for those landowners, but if you look to the north, down in that valley, there's 200 and some odd thousand acres, and there's no homes. There's literally no one there. So there are places that this works, and frankly, you've also got far less precipitation than you even have in Goldendale there. So I think there's some options that we could argue down the road, because if I lived at the end of Cedar Valley and I looked at property when we moved here out there, all the way to where, I think, was it finally connected, like Monument or something out there? I drove around a lot. There's gorgeous stuff out there. And there's a ton of homes that are gonna have to drive by this, something that they didn't expect. Lund, I didn't find terribly oppressive, but it looks like an industrial plant, period. It just, don't think people bargained for that. And I think that's arguable.
I think, may I interject?
You bet.
There were a couple of questions regarding state and federal agencies, and I'll try not to muddy the issue, but you may have heard the acronym FSEC, which is the Energy Facilities Siting and Environmental Council. They used to be under the Washington Utilities and Trade Commission until I think last legislative session. Now they're independent. That's the agency that is able to, so to speak, override local ordinances. However, they say they will take into consideration local ordinances. They say that. How much evidence there is at this point is kind of questionable, but they are a state agency that has to go through proper legal procedures, including open meetings, hearings, and so on and so forth. And there have been land use consistency hearings for the current application up here. There's been informational meetings that they've held. So FSEC is primarily, in this case, the agency at the state of Washington level that could supersede what the county wants. I believe Mochi can correct me, but I think the pump storage one is under Federal Energy Regulatory Commission,
Correct.
which is a federal agency, and I haven't studied as much about that process. So FSTEC does have the capacity or the ability by the law to cite things in places where people substantially aren't interested in doing that. One difference in Klickitat County is when the moratorium was passed for this area, there were no applications on the table. Probably the only real difference. In Douglas County, they did not have a moratorium in effect. In Benton County, they did not. For the first projects in Yakima County, they did not. I think FSEC's considering that right now. According to Carragher Solar in their presentation, which is online, you can go to, if you just type in Carragher, CARRIGER-FSEC, you can look at anything you want to, and they have presentations on there that they've done there. Sometimes they're a little hard to find, but it's on FSEC site. And Carragher would under Cypress Creek would say that the moratorium is not a land use planning tool. So there's discussion there. So that agency does have the capacity to override the county. I think a couple of things I want to say. These are the meeting minutes from November 6th of 2018, Board of County Commissioners, and I'll pass them down if you want to look at them later. But there's a section in here. Generally, my sense of minutes is that minutes are pretty conservative in the things that they state. They're not word for word. They basically are much more moderated, but I wasn't at this meeting. It said Commissioner Sauter asked if the EOZ treats solar projects the same as wind projects. Director Lindblad advised that at the time the EOZ was developed, commercial solar of this size did not exist and were not considered. The EOZ allows solar, but doesn't address regulations specific to solar. And then later on in that, I'm gonna give this so everybody can read these segments. These are just, this is 2 pages that I printed because I'm too cheap to print 9 pages of minutes and give them to you guys. But it says discussion at the end of this part. It says discussion continued regarding updating the EOZ to encourage solar developers to locate in less populated areas. And then it talks about setting up a grid for carbon-free energy zones to support proposed data centers, utilizing opportunity zones and support for the landowner's choice to use their property for best return as well. But nearly 5 years ago, the Board of County Commissioners were having these discussions. If anybody wants to look at them, they can. And I think they did not proceed in a way that there was no result from what they did. I think it was set aside, and I can't comment. I wasn't here. Mochi probably can if she wants to, or she can, but I can't tell. It doesn't look like. I think that she told them it was the EOZ wasn't right for the circumstance, and nothing went anywhere. And I don't know what the reasons are for that. So anyway, I just thought that would be good context for y'all to see.
Yeah, when we did the EOZ 20 years ago or whatever it was, solar was just not really thought of because it was really not a thing. Now it is. And after the tour we had today, and my big bugaboo was protecting the best farm ground in the county by far, which is out west of Goldendale and into Centerville, and population density. And it's reinforced that out east is far more suitable and appropriate for these things than the best farm ground in Klickitat County. So it looks like we're leaning towards, I don't know if a ban is quite the right word, but pretty close.
Or just stating that the Planning Commission recommends for whatever time period or foreseeable future that the county not accept applications for industrial solar inside the moratorium area, something to that effect.
And if we're going to propose something in writing, which we have to, I think we need to say in there that part of our reasoning behind this is that admittedly, we really don't know how to handle this. The state doesn't know how to handle this. So, and I think that's probably good language because then you can turn back to FSEC and say, hey, you're a quasi-state government agency, because they kind of are. What makes you think you know how to handle it if the state doesn't?
Well, I don't know that this is a place where, do you need to say something?
That portion of the hearing is closed, sorry.
My name is Ken Nichols. I'm with Avangrid, owner operator of Glendale. I was going to answer.
Okay, if you want to answer some questions briefly.
Chair, would you like me to set the timer or?
I just, does this work?
Yeah.
Yeah, hi, Ken Nichols, Avangrid Renewables. And actually, I was just the one thing to think about is FSEC. I think that's the thing you got to really pay close attention to. And what I was going to suggest is look at Klickitat County, a company called TWSO. I'm sure you could, TWSO. Anyway, Klickitat County had a moratorium. They applied for FSEC and they got the project approved. If you follow the line on that project, they're in the process of constructing now. So I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a land use attorney. So I'm not here to give you counsel, but I am here to pay attention to that because to me, it does feel like it could be risky. Not I'm gonna say ignoring, but put a moratorium where the state takes control of your development.
Isn't Tuoso a 47.5 acre tract? Or is it the five
It's
separated
small.
40 to 50 acre
It's
tracts?
they're small.
Right.
Yeah, there could be distinctions. I agree, right? And I'm not here to say that.
And I think, didn't the Department of Commerce also recommend to FSEC that in the case of a Growth Management Act county, like Klickitat County, that conversion of land out of agriculture is a Growth Management Act issue in that specific case?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I read an 18-page report from the Department of Commerce on that. Okay, thank you.
There's differences, but I just
Sure.
go in wide, eyes wide open is all I'm suggesting.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, we have another person on Zoom would also like to speak since we allow Ken to do so. Would you allow that?
Okay, sure.
Adrian, if you like to speak.
Yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I wasn't quite ready previously, but I would like to make a quick comment about water resources and would like to let the participants and leads know that permit exempt wells are often allowed and have been discussed as associated with these projects. And should any sort of moratorium not be decided upon tonight, which I would be in support of, I would just like to say that permit exempt wells should not be given to projects like this and should not be offered to multinational corporations. If anyone in the Golden Dale area is concerned about their water resources or their wells, permit exempt wells should not be permitted. Thank you.
Thank you. And that is the final one. And I think we can maybe have a straw vote on, or maybe just go to a vote.
So I just want to make sure I understand this because this is a workshop.
Mhm.
So we still need to have an official public hearing before the planning commission. So what we decide tonight is for the planning commission to vote and direct staff to prepare a document, whatever that may be, and bring it back to the planning commission for your official deliberation, taking official public testimony for a recommendation to the county commission.
Okay, do we need a motion to state that? Or just say we're gonna have a straw vote and,
Yeah, you can make the motion, but I just want to make sure the expectation is after tonight doesn't mean we will have this right
No,
away. We still
yeah,
need to go through
yeah.
the formal process.
Will that
Right.
meet the, so we're proposing something, we're not taking final action tonight? Is that
well, we
correct?
have, I think it has to be a
Action.
public hearing to do that.
Right, your action will be direct staff to
Okay.
prepare the document.
Well, do you want to make that motion and we'll just do it that way and,
Well, I want to talk about it a little more, but I
Okay.
can't hear what Rick's saying. So the question Matt just asked me is if we needed to make a motion to direct staff to prepare say that again?
A document for you to go through the public process to have a recommendation, formal recommendation to the county commissioners.
Can I ask one more question for?
absolutely.
So. Do you, I'm not exactly sure who's making some of the decisions on siting, but I assume planning staff, but question, like avoiding ag land and cropland and pasture land and ranch land and that different definition and based on what we have for criteria, what I'm trying to do is maybe decide between having something that I think it would be really unlikely there could be any sightings out in the moratorium area. Follow me, as compared to, hey, let's just say no to the moratorium area. If there's a question as that there could be possible approvals, how are we better off with the two? When you really look at our criteria here, Do you really see there's much potential out there or not? You follow me? That's if the definition of ranch land, grazing land, cropland, critical area, all the things. I don't know that they could. I looked at it initially, read it and went, I don't think there's much chance they could do something there, but hopefully this wouldn't apply so much to where we want them or where, we're going to say, hey, we left you an area that you're more apt to be left alone. Is that the right language out on the east end as compared to in this moratorium area?
I grasp what you're saying. My concern is that I don't think and no reflection on Mochi or staff, not qualified to write it. We aren't qualified to write it. That's the problem, because we're gonna get balled up in how did you arrive at your definition? Show us your science. What study did you use? We're gonna get this handed back to us in a big way, where I think to simply point out that we have studied this, we've had tons of community input going, look, this is just not a suitable area. I think there probably are some likely areas. I took a tour with you, Dave, and I don't know how you could possibly describe a couple of those, 400, 600 square foot acre parcels in any way that couldn't then apply to something else that we were not going to describe it right. I'm really, and how did we arrive at it?
We might need some legal counsel to look which avenue to take to give us the best latitude. I don't think anyone sitting here is against solar. We're just against it right here around all these folks' houses and everything else. But by maybe banning it, it could, I'm not sure. It could, you see what I'm saying, Dave?
I do. I think, Klickitat County went through a process that took over 2 years to develop ordinances after they, I'll get a few things wrong, but initially, and this was going back a ways, like 2015 or 16, they denied some permits. And then those people applied to FSEC, which was that agency, of course, developed to site nuclear power plants, but it's an energy site. So they were able to go through FSEC. And even though that was possible, Klickitat County kept the work going through and developing ordinances. Unfortunately, we're 5 years too late right now. And it also doesn't mean if we as a planning commission, we can't make any decisions anyway, right? We can recommend to the commissioners that they continue to not allow solar to be built in the moratorium area, but it's up to them whether they do. And they can also turn around and say, we would like to see these kinds of pieces of work done going forward. So they can say that. If we don't, I sometimes I'm too blunt. I just consider surrender a really poor tactic when you're trying to win a war. And so not doing anything is not doing something to try to preserve the area the way it is because it's so populated is not. I just feel like the right thing is to do is in front of you. Just got to do it. It's just hard to do. Legal going forward, I can't answer those questions. I don't know. Yeah, I have a ton of fears, but I don't. That doesn't also mean I don't have concerns. That the solar pre-leases are largely options. They're just like somebody could. I suppose they're not that different from an option you might place in the commodities market. It's not the same thing or anything like that, but sometimes things don't come through, they don't come through.
When we talk about a moratorium on that specific area, not that we're saying we're banning it from the county. We're simply saying, look, we just don't believe this is suitable. We also need additional studies to develop this. And since there's a lot of unanswered questions that all of these counties are facing, my takeaway.
And I think one or two meetings ago, I asked Dana Peck, who kind of was part of the architect of the EOZ, about contribution to renewables in the state, and he says Klickitat County is number one. I don't know that. I didn't go fact check it, but I sure saw a lot of windmills today that are cranking out a lot of power. We have 2 dams that, you know, I mean, even in they consider hydroelectricity, which it works on the principle of the water cycle, somehow is not renewable, but that's somebody else's decision. We have those 2 dams, which are 1,000 megawatt electricity producers. We do contribute significantly to the renewable green energy market and the conventional energy market in the state of Washington. And I think what we're saying is here's an area of maybe 10 townships or something where we're thinking this is not the best place for it to be.
Yeah, can we, when you do your motion, we still want the staff to look at the rest of the county that's in the EOZ for solar, because we probably should be looking at citing criteria in the future.
Right, but I mean, the motion, this specific motion is more directed
Yeah,
towards staff to develop I don't like to use the word ban, but to no longer accept permits for industrial scale solar in the moratorium area.
So let me just be clear.
That's not a motion yet, by the way,
Yeah.
I'm telling
Yeah.
you.
Just to be clear, so the moratorium that we have right now is to not accept application within these 10 townships and ranges. The idea for the planning commission here is because moratorium does not last forever, right? So you're only good for 6 months. We can renew it every 6 months, but we have to have a public hearing. Is the planning commission's direction is to continue to not accept application, but it's just only pertains to county regulations. So planning department right now is not accepting application.
Mhm.
However, there are other avenue solar developers can apply for a permit, such as the state agency, FSAC. They can accept applications but that's, their process, not the county's process. So do we want to say that we actually not accept application, or do we want to say that it's not like industrial solar development or whatever the proper term is a prohibited use within that 10 townships and ranges?
Yes,
Okay.
so I would make a motion that we direct staff to prepare the documentation for whatever the Board of County Commissioners needs to see to prohibit large-scale industrial solar in the moratorium area.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Should we have some more discussion on it then before we go to a vote?
Could we?
So, and typically after that, we just have like a short discussion or question. But David, do you have any thoughts on after more data has been, more information has been compiled, we'll come back in 5 years to review, after we get, sometimes we'll do that in the case of a decision. They typically have review time periods anyway, maybe whether typically 10 years, but maybe you think about something different, or maybe we just make, it's going to have a time frame on it, isn't it? Or is it?
It's
the end
not,
of it if-
No time.
it's not
Need a
necessary.
time frame.
No, but I think it is important to actually continue to consider it. I think there is work that's still not done myself, and I'm not actually talking so much about the moratorium area, but I think that for the sake of people who don't live in that area in the EOZ, there is work that needs to be done on solar,
that's-
even for them. I mean,
That's what I was
certainly,
getting at.
yeah.
And
But I don't
also-
want to, but our mission, we were never commissioned to do anything with the EOZ. I think we were specifically not commissioned to do anything by the commissioners earlier. That's why I addressed only the moratorium area. in my
I
motion.
Right,
believe
that's what we were tasked with.
that was the priorities for the commissioners. And I just want to make sure to remind everyone is that we are working on the comprehensive plan update. So maybe this is more appropriate to not put a the deadline to just look at this prohibition within these 10 townships and ranges, but look at the county-wide comprehensive plan to see if renewables is something that we need to address, and maybe we need to revisit the energy overlay zone to see maybe we need to revise the boundaries or make some changes to that.
Yeah, we didn't know a thing about solar 20 years ago.
So that's the plan that planning staff is also have that on our work plan, but it's going to take time. And I just want
Yes.
to make sure.
I see the EOZ document is actually nested within the comprehensive plan right now. Is that correct? It is in the zoning ordinance. It exists in the zoning ordinance. And it's addressed. I'm not sure if it's in a comprehensive plan. I actually considered the 2015 Economic Development Strategic Plan, but maybe the comprehensive plan, when they say it's in the comprehensive plan, is it because it's part of the zoning ordinance?
No, the comprehensive plan is the guidance document. We rely on the comprehensive plan to develop regulations to implement the visions embedded within the comprehensive plan. So we did have a section talk about renewables, wind and solar both. But that is more or less tied to the energy overlay zone. And it did state that we should encourage this type of development. We need to cite them sensitively. And if they are not within the energy overlay zone, then we need to go through the conditional use permit process. So that's pretty much is the, couple pages in the comp plan. And you're correct, Dave, because the energy overlay zone, it is a zoning overlay and it is part of the zoning ordinance.
But the prohibited use is only in the moratorium area that we're discussing right now with this motion, correct?
Correct. I believe that's where you're headed.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, hypothetically, in the future, if we want to amend the EOZ, could we do a carve out on those 10 townships for solar only?
That's a possibility, but then again, I would encourage we look at everything comprehensively, because I think where we are today is in the past, and things change.
Oh, yes.
But in the past, we all seems to do patches here and there and not look at things comprehensively. And I think that's where we are today.
Okay. Any more discussion, Mark?
Well, I was gonna make a bad joke about the comprehensive plan needs to be comprehensively looked at.
Yeah.
Everybody knows.
Yeah.
Yes, that's why I keep saying it, because
You
I
just-
know.
You just wait till you get into one of those comprehensive plan hearings.
So if you don't mind, maybe the motion, the planning commission about to make a update, because we do have one right now, is to allow staff to find out what is the path forward, because I might need to have a conversation with the prosecutor's office, perhaps, to find out what would be the quickest way that we could put something on the book to prohibit solar development within those 10 township and ranges. Because just want to remind everyone, not that I'm trying to delay anything, but we have to have a process.
Right.
So we still need to have, if end up, this is the path we need to go. And if I could not find a quicker way, then the normal planning commission process is we need to have a document in front of you, in front of the public for everyone's comment. I still need to go through SEPA because this is a government action that is not exempt. And I'm going to be gone, sometime in July. And so it's going to take some time to get to that document. And I understand everyone is very anxious. And so if you allow me to have a conversation to see if there's any way that maybe we can temporarily have the prohibition in place while we work through the process, if that makes sense.
But you don't need a separate motion for that, do you? Does the chair have the discretion to have you do that or not?
Yeah, you,
Oh.
you just need
Yeah.
to have that motion
Okay.
to. So I just want everything clean is on the record.
Yeah, I think, well, you can add that to your motion and we'll do another second, I guess.
You mean amendment, the motion?
Amend the motion to include what Mochi was discussing.
Yeah, I guess I will amend it and just add that it gives permission of the planning director to seek out guidance from the prosecuting attorney or legal.
Yeah.
That was my motion
Okay.
amendment. Do we need a
Okay,
second on the amendment?
Yes, we need another second.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
So we are right now voting on the amendment first and then the whole thing?
Well, I think it can go all in one.
Yeah, so
Thing.
right now, I believe we have the original motion, and then the amended motion is to add to, allow planning staff to seek out guidance from the prosecuting attorney's office. And so we have a motion and we have a second. So
Yes.
do you
So
want me to?
I think we need a roll call vote.
Okay. Dave Barber,
Aye.
Jay McLaughlin is absent, Kelly Johnson,
Yes.
Mark Joby,
Yes.
Norma Benson,
Yes.
Rick Graves.
Yeah.
Tony Riley,
Yes.
Zach Langren. Zach is still absent, and Matt Spalding.
Yes.
So motion carries.
Okay.
So next Tuesday, we do have a planning commission regular meeting for a public hearing on the shoreline update. And I'm hoping I can give you a quick update on what the result is. I will do my best to get an answer to you.
I know, we're just keeping you really busy.
Is that, okay, is that at 6 o'clock? I just can't remember. Is that, okay, and then, so is what I need to do, I'm just trying to make sure I'm getting my assignments right, is I need to be reviewing the Shoreline Master Program proposed draft document again. There are no substantial changes, really.
No, because that's the documents that we had workshops on, and I had the planning commission's approval to send it out for the 30-day comment period. We did receive 2 official comments, so we do have a matrix table to respond to those comments. And also at the very last workshop, we have Mr. Gunko here provided a comment to Planning Commission. And at your request, you asked us to provide like a matrix to respond to those comments. So that's included in the packet. And so the next Tuesday's public hearing is for you to officially deliberate to see if we can have a recommendation for the county commissioner that will end the local process. We still have a SEPA appeal on this process. So those will be, we need to have a planning commission's recommendation before we can move on to the next step. And I just want to be sure everyone understands is even if the commissioner make a decision on SEPA or appoint a hearing examiner, I still don't know at this point. The whole local government's decision will be forwarded on to the State Department of Ecology, and they will go through the same process again. So that's not the end of it.
Yeah,
So I just want to be clear on that.
but it holds the hammer up instead of letting it fall
Yes.
on us.
Mochi, when was the last date of our consultant's changes on there? Because there was 2, I believe 2, I don't have it in front of me because we're not going to do it tonight, but there's 2 changes that he said he was going to make that were not on the last one that I received
The one that I just sent to you,
on,
the SMP, because
just
you just
a couple days ago. Okay, I haven't looked on that one.
yes.
Okay, I need to look at that. Thank you.
Yes, so those changes were made. Like we changed some shoreline environmental designations on some area. We did reduce the buffer for type F stream in Appendix B, critical areas regulations. So I believe we addressed all the comments that we received during the workshop.
I'll review that.
And if you like hard copies, just let me know, because I didn't make it for all the planning commissioners, but I did make some for a few. So if you like paper copies better, just let me know.
Okay.
There's more reading. Maybe the petition and stuff. If anybody wants.
I guess we need a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Any seconds? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none. We are adjourned.
Thank you for coming.